Democrats are stealing it. When they kicked out the watchers.
You are committing fraud.
Fraud is being perpetrated on the people.
10,000 dead people voted. How is this fair?
Stop the Democrats from stealing our election.
I say it's illegal voting.
Will not accept treason in America.
That is ridiculous. But it's called voter suppression.
Has this ever happened to you before?
Never.
How could they be so wrong with 198,000 people? They are being disenfranchised in the middle of a significant election.
But wait. Weren't we told in school that America is the gold standard of democracy? What's the reality? That America is filled with millions of fraudulent voters voting illegally? Like this man casting an extra illegal vote?
Dead people are voting, people that have moved to other states.
Or are we a nation where Americans are wrongly blocked from casting their ballots? So there are two competing stories: widespread voter suppression or massive voter fraud. For example, this year, Georgia's GOP Secretary of State accused 1,000 Georgians of voting twice.
There are 1,000 people of that 150,000 that actually double voted.
Wow, 1,000 double voters. That's a felony crime. And how many of those 1,000 did he arrest? Zero. None. Zero voter fraud. So, fraudulent voting is a fantasy, but what about vote suppression? Just before the 2020 election, the same Georgia official canceled the voter registrations of an astonishing 198,000 voters. They called it the purge.
I got my hands on the big purge list. Now, how? It actually took years.
Greg Palast, an investigative reporter with Rolling Stone, got suspicious about the disappearance of tens of thousands of voters from Georgia's voter rolls. Georgia told Palast that these voters had moved out of their home, left Georgia. But the purged voters told the reporter,
"But I've been voting right here ever since 1968.
According to the state of Georgia, they said, well, these people had moved away. So I went through the list and I started finding these voters.
I've lived in this house for 20 years.
And I've been living in this house 13 or 15 years.
I had been purged from the voter rolls. Haven't moved, and my name was not there.
So what's going on here? The state says these voters have moved, and here they were. Who knows if you've moved? The post office actually has licensees who can go into the postal computers and tell you exactly who's filled out those change of address cards. So the post office contractor gives me the official list of people who've moved and people who haven't moved. And it turns out these voters, they hadn't moved. 198,351 of them had not moved. So I took this list to the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia, and they issued my report, Georgia Voter Roll Purge Errors. Is this illegal? You bet. I looked, and according to federal law, before you purge someone off the voter rolls, you have to check with the post office and their official licensee contractor. That's law. So I get a call from the president of the National Bar Association, C.K. Hoffler.
Purging from the polls is a classic sign of voter suppression. That's a classic tactic. Isn't it ironic that the people being purged from the polls, by and large, are black and brown voters? How do you explain that?
Hoffler sued to return all 198,000 voters to the rolls. The suit was filed on behalf of rights groups headed by Black Voters Matter.
Latasha Brown, the co-owner of Black Voters Bus, is touring at least 12 states to spread their message of empowerment.
Even the National Voter Registration Act, a simple requirement is to have a third-party licensee. That's a simple requirement that you can literally just in a matter of being able to verify that those names, those 198,000 names never would have been on the list.
Right.
If they had just followed the procedure.
They said they moved. Did they move?
They said they moved and they didn't move. There's no evidence that those 198,000 people have moved. So we know what this is. This is another form, what we believe is voter suppression.
A federal judge told the state to meet with Black Voters Matter and fix the discrepancies, the massive errors in the purge list. Latasha Brown, backed by a dream team of America's top rights lawyers, went to the state capitol to confront officials to fix those discrepancies.
This purge case is just one of the many ways in which they are trying to destroy the vote.
If one voter is disenfranchised, that's one voter too many.
And we're coming to the new suppressing chief's office and demanding a meeting, and then we'll see him in court.
So Latasha led us on a march into the Capitol. The attorneys had told the state we were coming to meet the director of election. Now remember, this was once the heart of the Confederacy. We get to the office of the Secretary of State, and it's locked and dark, but there's a phone number taped to the door.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
The voting chief has disappeared. It was a cheap trick to avoid Latasha, but she had another idea.
And the Twin Towers.
So we went on the hunt.
And there he is, Chris Harvey, Georgia's Director of Elections, the Purge General himself. The man who erased these voters' registrations, dressed for Casual Friday.
Mr. Harvey, just a quick question. I was just talking to some voters, Curtis Fraser, Michael Watson, Ishtar Diaz. According to your office, these voters had filled out change of address forms because they moved, and so they were removed from the voter rolls. They told us that they have not moved, 20 years at the same house, 19 years, 10 years at the same house, that they haven't moved. They never filled out those forms. Can I give you their names? You can put them back on the rolls. They were wrongly removed.
I'll be happy to take their names and we can follow up with them.
Well, actually, we have a list of 198,000. If it turns out that they have not moved, as you claimed, will you return them to the voter rolls?
Sir, I'll be happy to take the information and follow up.
So even if
I'm going to prejudge what we're going to do.
So even if they're wrongly removed, you won't return them to the voter rolls?
I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do.
In other words, you're just not going to do it.
I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do.
Let me ask you a question.
I'm not going to answer any questions about stuff that's
Now,
going on.
but you told the court that you thought that maybe the post office, through a licensee named Anchor, had identified these people as having moved. They said they didn't. We checked with Anchor. You never checked with Anchor or the post office. We did. Why did you give the court the impression that you used the postal licensee to check whether these people moved, but you didn't? Have you spoken to Anchor?
I'm not going to answer any more of your questions.
Have you spoken to the post office and its licensees? You won't answer that. Well, the federal law requires you to do it, so you're saying you're not sure that you follow the federal law?
I'm not going to answer your questions.
We just want to get it resolved. Like, there are 198,000 people, as you can imagine, that we feel very strongly that are being disenfranchised right now. And so we're coming in good faith. We've reached out repeatedly for the last 7 days. We just want to get it resolved. And so we would like to sit down with you all. We don't want to get a run around the block. We want to sit down, have a meeting, have our experts to sit down with your experts and get it resolved. That at the end of the day, people's voting rights, as an election officer, you understand how critical that is.
Will you and the secretary meet with Latasha Brown and her plaintiffs?
Yeah.
You're not going to say whether you're going to just meet with them? The court has asked you, said you should meet with them.
As of today, the state of Georgia still resists returning 198,000 voters their rights and refuses to meet with Latasha Brown.